Greetings! My name is Alex with Davis Reptile Labs, and today we're going to talk about ASFs, specifically how I set them up in their enclosure. So first, to kind of kick off before we get into the meat, ASFs, African soft furs, they're a type of rodent native to Africa that ball pythons love. That's why I really love using them for my ball pythons. They don't generally go off feed with them. They tend to eat really, really well. Even frozen thawed ASFs, which is what I do primarily, they tend to eat them like champs. So I know that there's a little bit of mixed information out there and not a ton of solid advice. So I'm going to go over kind of what I do to set them up, make sure that we keep the smell down and give them enough enrichment in their tubs so that they don't really start chewing on things too much. So let's get into it. First thing, I use these extra large rat breeding tubs that I get from Reptile Basics. You can use a rack system from like a Freedom Breeder, an ARS, or anything like that. I really like these. They're relatively inexpensive, and I'm able to set them up pretty nicely on the shelving unit that I've got in my garage. So I put these binder clips on just for a little extra security. And we go ahead and we take the top off. I always have an extra tank handy right next to me for when I'm cleaning, so I can take out all the adults and the babies, put them all in there, and have freedom to kind of do what I need to do for cleaning the tank. Hey there! So to pick them up, just pick them up by the base of the tail, move them over, and they're good to go. So always check, make sure that there's no babies hanging out in any of your paper towel rolls or anything like that. Always keep a chunk of wood in there. That one's pretty good, so I can reuse that, and something that they can use as a hide. Hi, Mama. So now we just got to take out the babies. I always like to just check them out while I'm taking them out. Make sure that they all look pretty healthy, that none of them have any crust or anything around the eyes. And you can see ASFs are really good mothers, and they generally just make a giant baby pile with all of their babies, multiple litter sizes, and they'll just kind of tag team feeding them, which is really neat. So I'd like to just kind of dig around in the substrate, make sure that there's no babies that get down in there. Like I said, they generally have pretty decent sized litters. Anywhere from 10 to 20 babies is pretty normal with them. And they'll have them all just in a pile. So anything from brand new pinkies to probably 2.5 to 3 weeks old before they start really hopping around too much. They'll all just be laying in one pile. So now we'll move this out of the way and get to cleaning. So, like I said, after I dig through everything, make sure it's all gone, just dump it all out. And then sometimes you get some stuff stuck to the bottom, so I just grab a paper towel, do a quick wipe, get everything loose, and then dump it one more time. Alright, so after we got that done, the next thing we want to get is going to be our sweet PDZ. So this is something, I get it from a Tractor Supply Company. It is a like a horse stall refresher deodorizer. Basically what it does is it absorbs the ammonia. So I put a nice little thin layer. I use this 16-ounce deli cup. I probably use about half to 2/3 of it. And just dump that in there. And that helps to absorb any ammonia smell that really kind of gets down to the bottom of that. And then the next thing I put down is going to be this pelletized bedding. It's like pine pellet bedding that you get from Tractor Supply Company as well. You can get it at other stores and stuff like that. There's a Tractor Supply right down the street, so that's where I get this stuff. So, again, for this extra large, I use just a scoop of this. It's like a 2-quart pitcher from Walmart. So nice thin layer of each of those. You don't need it to be super thick, but just enough where it can absorb any liquid that gets down to the bottom and neutralize that ammonia. And then just a bag of pine shavings, flake pine shavings. This one I don't measure, I just kind of dig it out until it looks like it's a decent amount. You don't want it to be too high where it's going to make a super thick layer, but you want it to be enough where they can kind of burrow in it a little bit. They can kind of stack it up some so that they can reach the food and water if they need to, especially the babies. So just kind of fluff that all up, make sure it's nice in there. And then the next thing I do is I have just shredded paper from just mail and stuff like that. So I always just put kind of a little clump of that there in the corner, and I make a little nest. Just trying to help them out and give them an idea of where to build a nest. A lot of times they just kind of go in there and move stuff around and make it their own anyway. And then these are just little plastic containers that I cut a hole in, make a little hide for them. And then got some Timothy hay, which they like to chew on some, and they also like to use this to build little nests and things like that. So I just put about a handful and a half there in the corner so that they got something to kind of play with. And then you want to put in a wood chunk. So I've got this one that's still in pretty decent shape. They don't have too much like poop or pee or anything like that on it. So I'll put that in there, and then I'll throw in just another one. You can use just 2x4s, things like that you have just scrap wood around, cut them into little chunks that they can chew on. So we've got that. Then a couple toilet paper rolls. You can also use paper towel rolls, just cut them in half. I always like to put a couple of them in there so that they've got, especially the babies like to go in there and they'll just pile a bunch of them in one of those rolls. So they've really got something to kind of hide in. A little bit of exercise and enrichment as well. And then a little paper. So I just take kind of a few pieces of like computer paper first and put those in there. They like to kind of chew on that and shred it some. And then I also put in newspaper, or like those little like mail coupon newspapery things that come to you. Again, I've noticed a lot of them like to build their little nests in the corners. So I like to put one of these over here so that they can kind of build a little nest out of that. They like to chew it and shred it some. So I put that there as well so they can kind of choose from a corner however they really want to set up their little area for their babies. And then the ASFs really like treats and stuff. Mealworms are great because they need a little bit of extra protein from your rats and your mice. So if they don't get enough protein in their diet, they will actually eat their babies. Now don't be surprised, especially for like a first or second time mom, if she eats some of the babies, even if you're giving her plenty of protein, sometimes they just do that. Unfortunately, there's not a super great way to keep them from doing it. It's just making sure they have enough protein in their diet generally cuts down on that. So I take a little bit of mealworms and some bird seed, which they also like to kind of chew on and munch on, and I just throw that in there as well in like a little cat or dog bowl. And then that's their setup inside. And then I use the top that comes with it. I have a water reservoir on the top and the water nipple. And then obviously your little food hoppers. So I'll dump in some extra food. I use the Missouri rat and mouse diet as opposed to like the 6F or the 9F. Again, it's got a little bit higher protein content so that you don't have to worry about mixing in as much like dog food or cat food. It's still a good idea to do that a little bit so they get a little bit of that protein boost right out of their food hopper while they're eating. Get that in there, and then it's all set and ready for the babies and adults to be added. So we'll move that out of the way so we got some space. We'll move this back, and we'll start to reintroduce some of these. And again, a lot of these, like the smaller pinkies, are the ones I'm mostly concerned about wanting to get into one place. So I'll try to get them all in the little nest that I made there so that they don't get lost in the shuffle when it comes time to feeding. These ones that are a little bit older are able to move around a little better, so I'm not as concerned about that. So we'll get these babies in here. Some of those adults climbed in, so they're good and ready. We'll put this on top so these ones stop trying to hippity hop out of here. The other thing with these, I'll just kind of talk about briefly while I'm doing this. They have a reputation for being pretty bitey. You can generally breed that out pretty decently, just by, obviously, just like you do with your ball pythons when you're looking for genes. Just look for the ones that exhibit the behaviors that you want, not bitey, not jumpy, not eating their babies, right? And you're generally going to wind up with more calm temperament adults. That said, they're not domestic mice and rats. They are going to be a little bit nippier, especially when they've got newborns. So always be just a little bit more cautious with them. You don't want to startle them or anything like that. But like this colony right here, they're all great. They're great moms. They don't bite, anything like that. So they're good. The other thing that I do want to point out that's really important with these that's going to be different than mice and rats. The males, keep them in with the females. Do not take the male out to allow the females time to raise the babies. They're not like mice and rats in that regard either. If you take the male out and try to reintroduce him later, the females will kill him. He also won't bother the babies. He will sit on the babies and keep them warm just like the females. They make a great parenting colony. In a bin like this, the extra large, 3 females, 1 male, works great. Even when they've got 3 litters in there, they can manage them pretty decently in this size space. So that's it. That's how I set them up. I'll do some more videos later about some of the actual euthanizing them, how I keep my setup, pulling the grow outs, choosing temperament, all that type of stuff. But that'll do it for this week. Thanks for watching. Hit subscribe and like the video. Leave a comment if there's something else that you want to see. We'll see you next time.